Sorry about that, everyone. Um, so as I was saying, we're very busy pushing out print publications, and you have to iterate very quickly when you're doing that. And InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator are really core to that workflow. One sec. So my screen is frozen. Apologies, everyone. So, for those of you who have used WebDamn or are familiar with us, we of course empower teams to centralize and distribute all of their creative content in a flexible way. Now, before that content goes into WebDamn, of course, it has to be produced. And the majority of our customers are putting all of the content approved for use in things such as images, logos, graphics that might be available for their designers. They're putting those materials into WebDamn first. This is, of course, great because it means that teams can really access that content from anywhere and they can always find exactly what they need. However, for designers in particular, this poses an additional challenge for that early creation phase. Designers want to be able to try out all different types of images before they finalize a design. So doing that can be cumbersome and it can be time consuming if you're having to go to a DAM, download the high-res image just to place it and see how it's going to look in a layout. So with that in mind, earlier this year, we did launch the connector for InDesign, which of course is the hub for so many teams. Now, the response for the connector for InDesign has been fantastic, but designers also rely heavily on Photoshop and Illustrator. So we're very excited to have been able to extend the connector to include support for Photoshop and Illustrator, which we'll be showcasing later today, later in this webinar. Now, our goal, of course, is to truly support the end-to-end creative workflow. And, with the connector, designers in that early stage of their creative process can easily try out different images in their layouts without having to go to another system, go to their DAM, and download the high resolution images. They're going to be able to access those images directly from the tool, the native application that they're using. On the flip side, once that design is ready, of course, oftentimes that needs to go back into the DAM and it needs to go through approval routing as well. So we're really excited that we've been able to address that and make that really easy for the full creative workflow. Now, before we jump into the webinar, for any customers on the call, I did want to quickly cover a new service we're offering to help implement your brand guidelines in Brand Connect. Brand Connect, of course, is our latest product offering, and many of our clients come to us looking for better ways to manage their brand guidelines. Many organizations are still publishing them as PDFs or static HTML files. And Brand Connect gives these teams the ability to create and configure these brand guidelines dynamically in a web interface. A number of our customers have come to us to request assistance in moving their brand guidelines into this. So we're excited to announce that we did roll out a new service for any customers that might need assistance with creating their brand guidelines in this new interface. So if you'd like to learn more, definitely reach out to your customer success manager. And the last thing I'll say before we get into the different speakers who will be presenting for us today is that as we go through, please ask any questions you might have in the sidebar panel. We will answer as many of those as we can during the webinar. I'll be on there monitoring that and chatting responses. And then, of course, at the end of this webinar, we will get through as many questions as we can as well. So we have a packed agenda for today. We've got 3 fantastic presenters. One thing I'll say, unfortunately, our original speaker, Olaf Kern, is not going to be able to join us today, but we're very excited to have Max Dunn filling in for him. Max Dunn is an expert in this field as well, and he will be presenting on behalf of Olaf. Max is also the president of Silicon Publishing. And for those of you unfamiliar with Silicon Publishing, they are the leader in extending Adobe Creative Cloud functionality. Silicon Publishing has many engineers working on these products who have an incredibly deep knowledge of Adobe products. In fact, many of their engineers come directly from Adobe. So really excited to hear from Max on that. And then we will hear from Kenny Moyer. He is the Technical Resource Manager for Norfolk Southern, and he's going to take us through the challenges his team faces in the creative workflow, from scouring through large volumes of content to find the right materials for their creative campaigns. And then he's also going to tell us a little bit about how they're able to iterate quickly using the new offering. And then lastly, we will have WebDamn's premier art director. I'm sure you've all seen her work all over the website. Alicia Wilson. She will take us through a real-life scenario with the connector for Creative Cloud. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Max to take us through some best practices on InDesign. Max, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. So yeah, this is Max Dunn with Silicon Publishing, and I'm going to talk about InDesign best practices. Unfortunately, Oli couldn't make it, but Olaf, his work is being shown here. He built this, much of this connector for WebDamn, and I was just going to talk about a few things that are best practices, both traditionally and then show them in light of the WebDamn connector. So the first thing is high-res, low-res workflows. And many graphic artists will be familiar with this. So over the years, there has often been a process in the workflow for designing content where you don't use the high-res assets in the first place. Quite often, it's more convenient and lighter weight and faster to take a proxy image or for placement-only image and adjust that to your satisfaction, and then towards the end of the production cycle, introduce the high-res image. So that's something that's always been around in traditional workflows, but it's got a new twist with the WebDamn connector, in that we, with Connector, we're able to take a direct link from InDesign to the WebDamn repository, and when we have a graphic asset, we can toggle the high-res, low-res variants from the UI. So you can take an asset that you've dragged into your InDesign document from WebDamn and directly change the characteristics of the rendition from the links panel. So this is Adobe InDesign. Here's a high-res image, and I can toggle it to a low-res version. You'll see the watermark appears. These are two renditions of the same exact asset in WebDamn, and WebDamn knows the relationship between the high-res and low-res variants and lets you toggle seamlessly and work with the high-res, low-res workflow in an even more seamless way than before. The next thing I was going to talk about is linking and embedding in terms of best practices, and especially how you're going to get the most value out of the WebDamn connector, and generally in any kind of design workflow. Linking trumps embedding quite a bit. So linking is the process of, instead of having the asset inside the InDesign file when you save it, you can link to it. And that's a built-in feature of InDesign. It's standard to InDesign. It's the best practice that most designers use. Functionally, it would be very difficult to move around the files in the old days when InDesign came out. Linking was almost essential just because of the file size. Nowadays, it's not such a direct obstacle. It's simply a better practice. If you have a linked asset from an InDesign document and you want to change that, well, that asset might be used in multiple documents. Say this guy has a background you don't like. You want to make the gray into a different color. If you're doing linking, then those changes will flow through the documents or they may not, according to how you structure them. But you have the option of changing the asset in one place and having that change ripple through all documents. Whereas with embedded assets, you don't get the update. If you're changing the asset, it will be forever embedded in that document. Now, there may well be a use case for that, but in a primary normal design workflow, linking is definitely the better practice. Again, WebDamn is doing that with a real true URL-based link, so you don't need to relink to it when things change. We're also going to talk about just the nature of InDesign, how it relates to the other Creative Cloud applications. So we built this connector for WebDamn first, just connecting to InDesign assets, because that's the primary case where you have referenced assets. The reason we extended it out to the native applications is because in a typical workflow, InDesign is kind of the central hub from which you work with other Creative Cloud applications. So InDesign, as you'll see later, InDesign can let you edit the original copy of something that may be a Photoshop image or maybe an Illustrator image, and we're making that play nicely with WebDamn with our connectors. So we have support for direct linking from InDesign, and this InDesign file may contain references to a PSD image or an Illustrator image, and those referenced assets can be maintained. So here's Photoshop, there's that asset there, and you see the WebDamn connector interface to that. They can be maintained separately in these other Adobe applications. However, we see InDesign as the control center, the place where most of the work goes on to aggregate the content that was created in those other applications. And that's kind of a trend in design. It's possible, and people do deploy it, print from a raw Photoshop or a raw Illustrator file. But even those workflows we see gravitating towards using InDesign as a central hub, even if it does very little other than frame the content from other cloud applications. Finally, another best practice, and it's kind of critical once you think everything is cloud-based and it's beautiful to be in the cloud, there is still one thing about InDesign you need to know. InDesign itself, that InDesign file, the INDD file, it has a locking file that it writes to constantly. And so it's actually not a good practice to just simply leave your InDesign file. The assets can all stay in WebDamn, the referenced assets, the PSD, Illustrator, JPEG, TIFF, PDF, whatever. All those assets can stay in the cloud, but InDesign itself, for efficiency's sake, you want to actually have the InDesign file, the INDD file, on your local drive and move that back in and out of WebDamn. So that's all I had.
Great. Thank you, Max. Yeah, one of the things that I really liked that we were able to execute with you guys is the links, and WebDamn maintains permalinks. So that means you don't have that challenge anymore of if an asset gets moved from one folder to another on your server, you have to repair those links and relink those assets. So with the way we worked with Silicon Publishing, you won't need to do that. Assets can move from folder to folder in WebDamn, and those links will always be retained in the InDesign file. So thank you again, Max. That was really great information. So the next person we're going to hear from is Kenny Moyer with Norfolk Southern, and he's been working with us for some time and works closely with creatives as well. So he's going to take us through some of the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis. Hi, Kenny. You want to take us away?
Yeah, can you see our fancy digital asset management logo?
Yes, it's fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm joined here with Katie, which is our digital asset management specialist. I kind of just wanted to give a little overview of what Norfolk Southern Corporation is. We're a Class 1 railroad company. We've been in business 186 years. We operate in 22 states and have over 20,000 rails laid down in 22 states, 11 division headquarters separated throughout as well. Primarily on the northeast, east coast of the United States. We carry anything from cars to coal to commodities for products, anything that you have on the stores or anything like that we carry. So our visual communications department is broken up into 2 different locations, one here in Norfolk, Virginia, where we are based out of, and then the other one is in McDonough, Georgia. We have the majority of the creatives within VisCom here in Norfolk, 6 graphic designers, and then we have other ones come in and do freelance graphic design, digital asset management specialist, which is Katie, digital signage manager, and our video editing department is out of the McDonough area in Georgia. So decentralized a little bit so that our McDonough has access to more for video, for filming some of the rails. It's easier to get them out there for some video production stuff. Just a little history on what we actually have. We started off with probably 180,000 images, over 2 terabytes worth of images spread across different servers that our IT department managed. The images were scattered along different folders, were replicated in different folders. Same images were named different things. Zero metadata associated with it, so it really made searching for images a complete nightmare. Unless you really knew what the folder was called, it was hard to find. For instance, a locomotive, one person might put in the locomotive category, but if it was some sort of predecessor railroad, it would be in a predecessor railroad folder. So finding that kind of stuff was not easy to do. And then with increased requests from clients, trying to find those images took anywhere from an hour to sometimes a week, and getting multiple designers involved in finding particular images. So then comes the request from our clients, clients being both internal and external to the company. Right now, the creative department has about 170 jobs open right now. It's anything from requests for images to go on social media, for building calendars, calendar photos, VP headshots for different newsletters. We are a full-service creative department internally here. So we went out on the search for a digital asset management solution a few years back, settled on WebDamn at the first part of this year, and so it really has been a complete night and day difference on being able to find images for not only our clients, but our designers as well, being able to find images that they've needed quickly and with keywords that kind of make sense. With that being said, finding the new dam meant changing some stuff around, new processes, new guidelines being in place for not only photographers, but for people to be able to save images to the dam. We require naming conventions, metadata to be associated with it. There's a workflow before images are added to folders that are outside of the upload folder that Katie maintains, and so she is our gatekeeper to and from the dam. So that also has kind of changed the way we've looked at the dam as a department and as a company. This is a creative workflow that my director put together for his boss to kind of showcase what the dam really is. In his eyes, it's really the center of excellence. So this is the corporate media as our, or corporate communications is our parent department. NSTV is our digital signage platform. Creative services is what we work in, and the media center is obviously what I was been talking about before. But other than that, big customers in the dam is the marketing department, law department, and our external agencies, and our Operation Lifesaver and stuff like that. So this is a kind of a good example of how we've changed our workflow and our business model around the dam. So the InDesign Connector piece we've been running for a little while. It really has improved the workflow with our customers. The customers can come in and see the images in the design that the designers have working with on a lower res, and the turnaround between dragging and dropping the images out of WebDamn into a soup folder, pulling in the soup folder into the InDesign document, editing it out, resaving it back. It has definitely increased the ability to be able to show customer stuff on the fly. So just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what we would typically do the layouts for InDesign for, is our annual reports, sustainability, quarterly magazines, banners, all that kind of stuff we print in-house as well. So this is just an example of our annual report and just a bulletin that we gave for our Mormon Yard. And the annual report this year, they really wanted to show women showcased into the cover of our annual report. So we were able to sit down with the client on this one, drag and drop images in and out, and then, for example, how the link into InDesign has worked out well with us. The lady in the bottom right-hand corner had earrings on and not allowed to have earrings on in the railroad situation, so they actually photoshopped it out, resaved it in, and put it back in there. Same thing for the Mormon Yard. This was actually a new image that got taken. They were able to kind of showcase the customer a few different shots in there, just dragging and dropping and searching for the image out of WebDamn. Same thing with our quarterly magazine that we are able to produce for folks. This goes out to every employee in the company. We roughly have about 33,000 employees that this goes out to. We have a gentleman that's in charge of this. They come down and just drag and drop various images in there that he likes with the customer in low res, and it works very quickly so that they can see the end product before they package it up and send it off. Anything you want to add? That's all I got.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks a lot. So I like how you brought up that, with the woman in the earrings, and you have to edit that and get that back into InDesign. And that's something we struggle with a lot back in the publishing days, having to edit something and then iterate quickly. So that's good to hear that the connector is helping solve that problem for you guys. Thank you, Kenny. So with that, I am really excited to have Alicia Wilson on the line. And as I mentioned, Alicia Wilson is the WebDamn art director and a fantastic designer. So she is going to take us through how a real life use case of how she uses the connector. Take it away, Alicia.
Thanks, Leanne. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, awesome. As Leanne said, I'm the art director here at WebDamn, and I'm very lucky to be able to use such an awesome product with all of its extensions, and it really does help with our workflow. So I'm going to run you through a use case where you're working in InDesign, but you're connecting to both Illustrator and Photoshop. But first, we're going to start in WebDamn, where everything starts. So basically, we created the connector for Creative Cloud so you can integrate your files into WebDamn right into the Adobe Creative applications. And with this extension, you're going to spend less time swapping around apps and searching for creative files, and more time actually being able to concentrate on your design and getting your work done. And I'm sure all the designers on the line can appreciate how long it takes to Photoshop out those earrings, or kern type. I mean, it's really a craft, and the more time you have to do the fun stuff and the less time you're toggling between a bunch of windows and looking for files that are probably in your downloads folder, the better. So I'm going to be demoing the design of a winter promotion brochure for One Air, which is an airline and travel company. And to start off, I'm going to upload all the approved assets for the winter campaign into WebDamn, so any of my team members can make additional matching touch points later on. So here we are in WebDamn, and you can see, they have their logo files, their photography files, all their print ads, everything in here. First, I'm going to create a new folder named Winter Promotion in WebDamn, so everyone can easily find this. And then I'm going to drag and drop all of the approved images into the Winter Promotions folder. And now the files are uploading in WebDamn. And voila, we have all these beautiful images to use. And they're all winter themed. Okay. And as you can see on the right side of the screen, we have the WebDamn Connector palette. It's just like any other palette in InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator, so it behaves in the same way that you're used to, so it's really easy to start using it. And you can see the Winter Promotions folder. It automatically updates in here along with all of the logo and photography assets for the brand One Air. This template obviously has no images or logos in it, so we're going to work on putting the images in and making this beautiful. So first off, we're going to add the One Air logo to the footer of this brochure. So let's see. So I'm in the master page of the document, and I'm going to drag and drop the logo from the connector palette on the right into the footer, and now you can see the logos there. And I'm going to go back into the master and continue to edit the template. You can see the footer in the left-hand side, and I'm going to drag and drop this airplane image into the photo frame on the left. And then I'm going to select this snowboarder image, and I'm going to drag it and drop it into the frame on the right. And I really like how you can see all the thumbnails of the images. It takes the guesswork out. Again, I'm not going to some folder on my desktop or somewhere else to try to find these images. It's just all really clear, and it's right there. So there's our snowboarder image. This is really making me want to go ski. Okay, so after I get my designs in, I'm going to turn off all the guides in InDesign so I can actually see what this design looks like without all of these lines in the way. I think it looks okay, but the logo, I really want the focus to be on the airplane since this is a travel brochure. And the logo in the bottom is a little bit noisy, and I also want to tone down the snowboarder image because it's a little too bright. So again, I'm going to go into my master pages where I have my footer logo stored. And basically just select the logo, and then you're going to go into Edit, Edit Original in your drop-down menu on the left. If you're a power user, you know that you can just hold down the Option key and double-click the image, and it will open up into the native app, and that's actually just an InDesign shortcut key, which is really awesome. I use that all day long. But I just wanted to show you actually how to navigate to it in the palette as well. So anyway, we double-clicked, and then this is going to open up in Illustrator automatically. And here we have our One Air logo. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the logo mark, so it's just the word mark. So I'm going to go ahead and select the word mark, delete it, and then I'm going to save it in Illustrator and then toggle back to InDesign. And as you can see in the links palette over here, we have the yellow exclamation point, which means one of the links has been changed and needs to be updated. So if we go into our WebDamn palette, the connector palette, and click Upload, the logo automatically updates to the new version. And you can actually, when you're saving the Illustrator file, you can pick to make it a new version of the same file, or you can actually choose to make it a new file. So in this case, for instance, I'd probably make it a different version because I wouldn't want to corrupt my original logo file that's stored in WebDamn. Okay. And now I'm going to return back to my main file because I want to address the image of the snowboarder because it's a little too bright. Those yellow snow pants are killing me. So I'm going to select the image of the snowboarder. And again, edit and edit original, or just double click, as you probably already know. We're going to toggle back over to Photoshop. And I'm going to go into image adjustments and swap this into a black and white photo. And just click OK. And then I'm going to do Command L to adjust the levels, because when you go from color to black and white, sometimes you have to pump up the values. And again, click OK. And then we're going to save the file again, and it will automatically update that into WebDamn, which is awesome. Like, I don't know if you guys realize, but as I'm saving these files, they're already getting loaded into WebDamn. So I don't have to, at the end of this project, again upload everything into WebDamn. It's already there. So we're going to toggle back to InDesign. And again, you see that file alert in the upper right-hand links palette. And so again, we're just going to go into our connector palette and click Upload. And there you see the black and white image. So this is the final layout. And at this point, you can send the InDesign file to other members that are in your WebDamn team. And they won't need to, I think someone else was mentioning this, they won't have to download the whole packaged file, which can be like hundreds of megabytes. They just need this InDesign file, and those links will pull the images in from WebDamn. Yeah, so thanks all for taking the time to watch this webinar and listen to me. And Leanne, back to you.
Thanks, Alicia. It's great. I love seeing it on the screen. So we have a lot of questions. I'm going to get through as many as I can, a lot of great questions. The first one, I do want to kick over to you, Kenny. In reference to creative workflow, what type of content was provided in the HR and law area that you mentioned?
We actually do quite a bit with our HR and our law departments with regards to recruiting for HR. A lot of recruiting campaigns. We'll go out and shoot. We're big with veterans and with women on the railroad. So they'll go out and do photo shoots, and then photographers will upload the photos in the WebDamn. Katie will approve them and then stick them in light boxes for the customers to go in and review and comment on and kind of go back and forth on those images, and then work with the designers on the ones that they finished. Law department's a little bit different. Several images that we produce all have to be vetted by both our ethics and compliance department and our law department before being published to the public. So that's another scenario where we do incorporate the light boxes and send links to view and to download the images before anything has been kind of pushed out to general consumption.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that fully answers the question from the customer. So another question. Well, first off, a couple of things I just want to highlight in the connector. As far as when you're looking for content in it, everything is fully searchable, just like it would be in WebDamn. So the option for the person looking for material, they can search or they can browse through folders just like WebDamn. So we're very excited to support that. One other really cool thing is within the connector we have a filter where you can filter out documents that aren't supported in InDesign or aren't supported in Photoshop or Illustrator. So it should be very easy to find anything you need. Another question asking if WebDamn connector is optimized for CC 2015. We did develop the connector specifically for Creative Cloud. It is optimized for 2015 Creative Cloud. It also is fully supported for 2014 Creative Cloud. Another question, and Max, if you're still on the line, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. How do you think this impacts customers and their need or use of Adobe Bridge?
It is really a replacement for Bridge. It doesn't augment it or work with it particularly. So we have seen Bridge declining in usage, and there has been huge frustration with the combination of Adobe Bridge and Adobe Drive, which seems to be on its way out. So we don't see this as enhancing Bridge, but rather replacing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, for our customers, certainly they're putting all of their brand approved assets into WebDamn. So I think once you're working with Connector, you know, or if you don't work with Connector, then you're downloading and leveraging Bridge to get it in InDesign or Photoshop. So Connector, I would agree, makes Bridge maybe not quite so necessary for our customers. As far as, let's see, a couple others here. So the connector to save files to Creative Cloud, so they can use the Adobe CC tool for iPad. I am not, so the connector is really optimized to be able to upload and send files back to WebDamn and then connect them into InDesign and Photoshop and Illustrator. So I'm not sure that it would work with the CC for the iPad. Max, have you encountered that at all with your other customers?
Yes, you can. It's not a very direct workflow, but you can work with it in a kind of redundant way. It's still possible to work with some assets in Creative Cloud and some in WebDamn.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's see, they keep pouring in. Give me one moment. So it was mentioned for InDesign that it's better to work locally and then save up to WebDamn instead of saving directly in WebDamn. Could you explain why? I think this is a question for Max again.
Yes, it's just the nature of InDesign. InDesign has a locking file. You can see it if you look in the folder where your InDesign file is. And the way InDesign persists all of your undo stack is by frequently saving out to that locking file. So even not even going as far as the cloud, just going to a network share, keeping it on a network drive is often a source of corrupted files and problems and latency. So a local drive is really nice with InDesign just the way it is constructed. But again, just for the INDD file, not for the referenced assets.
Great, thank you. Another one, can you set up roles or groups so that we can define who can view, update, modify certain groups of assets? Absolutely, and that will extend to the connector. So you are logging into Connector just like you would log into WebDamn, and then whatever your access levels are. So whatever content you should see or have the ability to download or whatever folders you can upload into, that's all going to translate into the connector. A lot of questions about WebDamn specifically. Definitely will make sure you get the information you need after the webinar. We want to go ahead and focus on the connector in this webinar. So let's see here. All right, so can you explain quickly how the connector works with Photoshop? I'll go ahead and take this one. So there's two different ways it works with it. One, if you're in InDesign, your asset is already linked in WebDamn. What people tend to do is, you know, if they want to do some heavy editing of that asset, they want to do that in Photoshop. So there's two ways to do that within Photoshop while still keeping the file updated in WebDamn. While you're in InDesign, you can open the file with Photoshop. So the feature is called Edit Original. Alicia pointed out a key command. So that'll open it into Photoshop. You can perform your edits, and then you can save it back into WebDamn. You can save it back into WebDamn as a new file, which will update the link in InDesign to reflect that. Or you can upload it as a version on the same file, and that will also retain the link. Another great question, can an external vendor outside the company network have access via the connector? Absolutely. That is the beauty of the connector. You know, a lot of companies, they have their local servers or their shared servers that you have to be connected to a VPN to be able to access. If you're working with freelancers, contractors, vendors, it's very hard to get them access to that. So having WebDamn, you know, you can definitely get them an account with WebDamn, and then if they are doing design work for you, they're going to be able to leverage all those assets within WebDamn through InDesign, through the connector for InDesign. So certainly this is one of the primary challenges that we were set out to solve using connector. Is the only way to work with Photoshop or Illustrator through InDesign? No. You can definitely go straight to Photoshop or Illustrator and search and browse for assets. You'll have the same extension panel available. You can drag or drop those assets into those applications, do your work, save them back to WebDamn. One of the things we didn't mention, but is really handy as well, is you can also drag or drop once you have the connector. You can drag or drop assets from the WebDamn interface directly into Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. So, you know, if you don't have the connector up or installed at that moment in any of those tools, you can still go into WebDamn and drag the asset from WebDamn into those tools. So as far as a question about single sign-on environment, that is something that will be coming very soon, support for that. For now, it's just going to be WebDamn users specifically. So connector work with InCopy. That's something that I've thought a lot about. That's something that we worked with for the magazines as well quite a bit. That's not something that we've addressed quite yet. We're really focused on the visuals and the rich media content right now, but certainly it's something that is on the radar. Permissions, again, permissions can easily be controlled within WebDamn, and that will translate into the connector. All right, I think we have actually got through all of the questions, unless anyone else wants to sneak a few in here. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. One thing I do want to remind everyone, we are recording this webinar, so we will be putting that up in Damn Success, and we will make that available to all of you. So thank you very much for joining us today. Really excited we had such a fantastic turnout. And of course, Kenny and Max and Alicia, really appreciate you guys all speaking, presenting today. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Bye.